All right, so we are recording. Welcome. It has been a long, long time. Welcome back. This is The Last Defense. We're actually going to be recording for the first time in about 12 to 14 years, so it's a pleasure to
Yeah,
have you back on. So, Mike,
mm,
how are things going with you these days?
they're going all right. I still live in Vermont. I live in a different part of Vermont now, Plainfield, Vermont, near Montpelier, which is the state capital. I am no longer a full-time news reporter. I do odd jobs, lots of odd jobs, restaurants, retail, home care, dog walking, and journalism, part-time journalism. And I'm trying to get back into full-time journalism, which is part of the reason I'm here and probably why you're here. And I know we all got different plans, but I know we both care about the media and getting the word out on all different important things.
Absolutely, yeah. And you got to do what you got to do to survive, and hats off to you for making that
Yeah,
work, especially with a busy family life and all. And so, yeah, hopefully this will be the start of something that we can carry into the future, and not only just for ourselves, but also to help others out along the way.
I got a twist of irony I'd like to share.
What's that?
Well, the last time we recorded together, we were on a live radio show, not more than a few hundred yards from where I sit right now. Across the street from me, it's not in the background in this shop, but if I was to turn the camera, well, you can't see it through the woods anyway, but Goddard College was where the radio station was that we were recording those shows. And I just found out yesterday that radio station is how do you say it's closing down, and I've got, how do you say, bittersweet emotions about it, maybe crocodile tears. So, the short of it is our show was booted because frankly I think we were challenging the establishment media on all different issues. We were constantly making them upset. And they finally ended our show. This is the Goddard radio station here in Vermont. I don't wish failure on anyone. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person that wishes bad things to happen to people or entities, even if I have a grudge, whatever. But I do find it a little bit ironic that we're doing this show almost to the very day, realizing their fate. They are now the ones who are going off the air, and we're coming back on the air. So, a little bit of
Yeah,
irony there.
yeah. Funny that you should mention that because the way that media is going these days is we find that more and more people are getting on social media, and even that is changing quite rapidly, especially with a lot of the laws that are being passed here in the UK.
Mhm.
But everything's on social media now. If it's not Twitter, it's Facebook. If it's not Facebook, it's YouTube. If it's not YouTube, it's going to be Rumble, Odyssey, and all the
Mhm.
others that are there. So, I mean, there are a lot of platforms to choose from, and I guess it makes it more democratic to do so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's no real telling as to like how the health of online radio is going to be, or rather, broadcast media is going to be.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
What's going on in the UK with I'm hearing that people are getting arrested for their social media posts. Can you
Yes,
comment on
yes.
that? What's going on with that? That doesn't
Yeah.
sound very
So,
democratic or free speech.
lo and behold, there have been criminalization of social media tweets under the former Keir Starmer government. I will not give him the Sir title. I don't really think he deserves it. And thankfully, he's out of office. But what I would say is that that people get a sentence of up to 32 months
Hmm.
for tweets that are an alleged incitement to hatred or to personal harm or injury. That's what they say. However, there have been two prolific incidences that have taken place in recent past. A couple of years ago, there was a woman. There was a woman that made social media tweets
Hmm.
that she was arrested for 32 months, and she was basically just saying, well, let the moss burn for all I care, and something like that, because she was really upset about, things that happened in Southport and other parts of the UK where things were becoming a bit kind of heated, considering what was going on. 3 girls had been murdered,
Right.
and I'll remember the woman's
Still in
name.
jail?
What was that?
Is she still imprisoned?
No, she's out. She's out.
Oh, great.
And another case, there was a comedian that was flying from Texas to the UK, and when he arrived in Heathrow Airport, he was swatted basically by 5 police officers, and they held him to the ground. He then began to experience a massive spike in his blood pressure, and he was put in jail for in question and grilled for like hours. Once he got out, it just came out that late last week, may have even been Saturday, that he was awarded £25,000 and an official apology from the Metropolitan Police.
Wow.
For his what he experienced.
Now, I'm iffy on my history, but is it the Magna Carta and all that freedom of rights and speech based on British or English history and developments?
Well, basically, the Magna Carta was developed, I believe, it was sometime in the 1200s. So, and it was kind of like the basis for the foundation of creating a democratic state.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is, that was a law that talked about land ownership, property ownership, things of that nature, the relationship between the monarch or the sovereign at the time and the individual people, because there was a system of peasantry at the time. Mm-hmm. And, the Magna Carta is seen as like one of the first founding documents of democracy. However, there is no official constitution of the United Kingdom. It is a constitutional monarchy. There's a system of Parliament working to create laws, and then they go to royal assent by the king himself or the queen.
Okay. Well, it just seems like an awfully far off from what we in America think is a free society, and hate speech is protected. That's what we're always told. You're allowed to have hate. Although I got to admit, in the last 5 or 10 years or so, it felt like things were going by the wayside in the U.S. as well. I feel like there's been sort of a pullback in the free speech direction in the last 2 or 3 years, but it feels like global society as a whole is under this like new threat, this new push by the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, to silence folks like you or I. So I thought I'd start with that. I thought that was an interesting subject.
It is.
Hopefully we don't. I got to go across the Canadian border in 2 weeks to pick up my family from the airport. They're visiting relatives in Korea, and I wonder. I'm like, are they going to ask me about my if I'm a journalist, and I think about what's going on in Canada, because it seems like they've kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. I'm like, gee, are they gonna bother me when I get to the border because I said something on a podcast? Who knows? We'll find out. Probably not, but it feels like it's going that direction.
Well, you never know. I mean, because it seems to be an issue of continuity between the Five Eyes government. And by the way, that guy that I mentioned earlier was Gran Linneman. He was the co-founder of the show Father Ted, which is one of the staples of British comedy. And yeah, I mean, Five Eyes governments, they're going to always try to share information and policy because they can understand each other. They speak the same language. But, the way I've seen things go, especially here in the UK, it's become quite perilous, to say the least. I know that with, under Trump's leadership, or at least Trump's government, freedom of speech has improved significantly. People feel like they can say what they want to say. Is that correct?
Mostly correct. I do feel like I like to be devil's advocate with everything nowadays. I feel like as the Israel and Palestine conflict heated up, there was some pushback, maybe not by Trump himself, but some of like his right wing sphere of influence, if you call it, to try to they didn't arrest anyone, but they were really pushing back on anybody critical of Israel for a while. I feel like even that's resided a little bit recently because things are getting so out of hand over there, and thank goodness for social media. Thank goodness for Elon Musk buying X. I feel like that changed a lot, but even that's subsided now, where I feel like we're more free to speak about that. But there was a while when the initial conflict started after October 7th, I felt like there was a pressure that was going in the wrong direction, where if you tried to speak ill of Israel, you were immediately shunned or called an anti-Semite, whatever. And they have a right to say those things, but they don't have a right to throw anyone in jail. And luckily, it didn't go to that. So there's that.
Yeah, it's good that it never really came to that in the States. I didn't hear of any cases. I know, but here they say there was a case to date. Roughly about 12,000 people have been thrown in prison for this kind of offence.
That's insane.
And it's sparked a lot of debate because of when Trump and Keir Starmer had a meeting. I think it was about a year ago. Yeah. Starmer lied to his face and said that, we practice freedom of speech and democracy. We're a part of the rule of law. But you can clearly see that's not the case. And I think just recently, in like one of the stories that broke out here, you've seen some issues about the murder of Ann Widdecombe, right?
Yes, are we talking about the incident where the fella was stabbed to death and the police didn't help him?
No, that's Henry Novak. So
okay. got my stories mixed up a little there, but
it's okay.
Refresh us on the story.
Yeah, Henry Novak case was a really, really tragic one. So that was with an 18-year-old from Southampton.
But what's the one you're about to mention?
Ann Widdecombe, she was a member of Parliament and member of European Parliament, and then she died. She was murdered at 78 years old on the 8th of July this month. And
involved in the Reform Party.
Yeah, she was a member of the Reform Party, and actually,
I did see the story. Yes, that was concerning because my understanding, and you sounds like you know way more about it than I do, but my understanding from headlines is people are questioning how she died. You used the word murdered, so that's not good. What happened?
Well, the latest reports I see, especially following some of the media circulating around, is that in the video footage coming from her house, there was a man seen walking away from the home with a stick, like a large wooden stick, so it could have been a bat or some kind of blunt object used to murder her. Now,
she was
the main concerning thing that people should know about. Oh, sorry, you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, so was she found shot, or what was her manner of death?
Likely beaten to death.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
With the wooden stick, and the first suspect that they apprehended, they said it was a 26-year-old male that was white British national, which came out to be false. He was a suspect.
Interesting how that happens. They get it wrong in the beginning.
Well, here's the thing, they'll say it's a white British male. When the case involves a white British male, they'll immediately disclose who it is. The nationality and everything.
They don't say often.
But here's where it changes up. It switches up when we find that the second suspect that they apprehended is now found to be a man, a 28-year-old man from Rotherham, which is just outside of Sheffield. And we know that there's a large demographic of Pakistanis, Indian Sikhs, and others.
Oh, right.
And this is the standard protocol they do every single time one of these issues takes place. Even in the case of what happened in Belfast recently, the one that you were speaking about earlier.
Yep.
And then additionally with the case of Wayne Broadhurst, which was about a year or so ago. He was brutally stabbed in broad daylight in Uxbridge, London, by an Afghan migrant. They didn't want to release the ethnicity of the person until way later.
Right. Is it wouldn't I would consider that a free speech issue that people would have a right to know. But
Well, it's due diligence and it's also proper reporting. But what
right,
they don't want to do is to disturb the multicultural project that they've been trying to push through this country
right,
for a lot of time and a lot of, for quite some time, ever since like the days of Blair, but even before then, during the integration of the European Union. Um, so, there was, if you ever heard of the Maastricht Treaty?
no. I mean maybe, but refresh us.
So it basically incorporates a lot of the different countries that were forming the European Union prior to it coming into power, and it was
Okay.
just kind of the terms
Oh,
of
the
whether
Versailles
it's
Treaty. Sorry, I didn't understand. Are you talking about after World War One?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I misheard it. Yes, I know what you're talking about. It failed, right? That was like supposed to be the war to end all war.
Well, I mean, what the Maastricht Treaty is in effect. The countries that are members of the European Union typically adhere to all of the terms of it. I think there was, I believe it was struck down in the UK. They opposed it,
Mhm.
and they were able to keep the pound. For one thing, the euro was supposed to be one of the terms and stipulations of entering the Maastricht Treaty. I'll need to get more information on that just to be precise, but that's one of the things that involves that. Um, we could go on for hours about it, and probably will in like a future
Mhm.
podcast or something like that. But I was going to ask you, what's a story that you find quite concerning or quite interesting on your end?
Well, I'm going to stick to what I've been working on because that's what I know about. I did two stories. I know we have limited time, so maybe I'll try to just briefly go over both of them. One is I interviewed a man named John Clark. He's here in Vermont. He's a farmer. He ran for governor. He ran for state senate. He's a lawyer, and he wrote three books. And these books are Small Farm Republic, The Coming Food Crisis, and Welcome to the Revolution. If you can't tell from the names of the books, those are about the food economy, the global food economy. And so I interviewed him for the local TV station. And basically, what I learned by interviewing him, and some of this may sound like common knowledge, but it's important to talk about it. The food economy is so sensitive. We always talk about oil, like, price of oil goes up, it's harder to drive. Well, a lot of what was going through the Strait of Hormuz, and he talks about this in his books, is was fertilizer. And so that's going to impact farming in the Western world. And what's interesting about it is it's going to be a delayed reaction. So when the oil price goes up, we immediately or relatively immediately see the prices of gas go up. That's not such the case with food. What they say what's going to happen is next year's crop, the prices of food could end up going way up. Even if the war were to end tomorrow or today and nothing else were to happen, because we had that major disruption in the flow of fertilizer for the period that we did and may continue to, because as we both know, the war seems to be not quite ending. We thought it was, and it's not. It seems like a quagmire. But in any case, even if it ended right today and never, and all the shooting stopped, we're going to see probably some uncomfortable food prices. And in America and in England, that could just mean eating more rice and beans instead of like, steak and fish or whatever. But in a third world country or in Africa or different parts of the world where they're more sensitive to food, to the food economy, that could mean people starving. So that was an interesting interview. And when I get it completely edited and ready to go for TV, which is what I'm doing with it right now, I'm going to the TV station each day to learn how to do that. Maybe I'll share it on this show. But how about in England? Are the food prices stable? What's going on with food?
Well, food prices are rising, slowly at the moment. However, the problem with the issue in the Strait of Hormuz is that every time they every time they try to adhere to the memorandum of understanding, it seems that you know either Israel or the United States breaks it, because in the most recent incident, you know, um, Iran fired on another tanker, another vessel,
Yeah.
But under the MOU, they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to provide safe passage, and even under the law of the convention on the the convention on the law of sea. I believe it's like UNCLOS. I can't remember the exact name, but it was done in 1982, and that was the law from the United Nations that said they are allowed to provide safe passage because it's their territory.
Right. But how is shooting on a vessel allowing safe passage?
Well,
You mean
they have to
not?
get
Right.
authorization before they go through, and that's the new terms.
So this vessel didn't get authorization. It sounds like.
If they navigate the Strait of Hormuz now because of the heightened security issue, and they turn their transponders off so that they can go stealthily,
Oh, they don't like that. I see.
that is a breach of the
Agreement.
terms of warfare. But in the UK, it could definitely spike food prices because we import a lot of the food that we get. That's a big issue. So not
Right.
only do you not grow domestic stuff, but you're also going to have to import a lot of food from Spain or Italy or so on, like fruits and veg, leaving the UK quite vulnerable unless it kind of increases food production here, which without the right kind of fertilizers is going to be a massive problem.
Yeah, you don't have all the land that we do over here,
No.
so I could see that being an issue. But even if you have all the land, if you're relying on fertilizer from around the world and you're not getting it, doesn't matter how much land you have, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have
So-
a story that you wanted to share as well? Or I know we're under like a 40-minute clock, so
Yeah, I mean, we're still chugging along pretty well. What I can say is that with the stories that I've been following at the moment, the Ann Widdecombe one was the big one right there.
okay.
We also have
I have another one too.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, the other major thing is that we've got Andy Burnham coming in. He's being parachuted in to become the next Prime Minister.
Parachuted in. You mean like literally?
It feels like it, basically. Lobbed in like a hand grenade, basically.
Wasn't there a famous story in World War II where somebody actually parachuted in and like landed in the Big Ben or something like that? I forgot. It's like a famous World War II story.
Well, if it was World War II, it may have been Churchill, but I'm not sure if that actually took place.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So my other story,
yeah,
is it okay if I go ahead with that?
yeah, go for it.
I mean, it kind of dovetails with what we're already talking about because you kind of mentioned it already. So this other story I actually was working on right before the show. I went to what's called Bread and Puppet Theater. They're a theater group here in Vermont, and they specialize in anti-war activism. And they had a movie called An Artist Responds to War that they just played at the local townhouse. I basically ran over from the townhouse to come do this interview. They're still there, actually. They're talking about the movie. I interviewed the director of the film. His name is Peter. I'm sorry, not Peter. The movie's about a guy named Peter, but the director is Robbie Lepser. And he did a great job. And maybe, I don't know about this show, but maybe in another episode we could play like a preview for that film. I know that there's ways to do that. They did a good job, and it focused on the Gaza, Palestine-Israel conflict. And you had mentioned when we were just talking about the Strait of Hormuz that it feels like Israel, even though they're supposed to be a different country and they're supposed to be like, their own thing, separate from the United States, separate from the United Kingdom. It feels like they're kind of dragging us into this thing. Do you not get that sense? They're keeping us in it and causing a ruckus.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you get entangled in these foreign conflicts, you're not really beholden to your constituencies, which are like the people that you govern. You're beholden
Right.
to foreign powers, which then dictate what kind of outcomes you have for your country. Because, initially with the Strait of Hormuz issues, the war that's going on between the United States and Iran, initially Israel gave the U.S. intelligence. It was false intelligence that said that they could easily just go in and decapitate
Right. I
the
remember that.
leadership of the Iranian government at
And
the
they did
time.
that, right? But the false information was they didn't fall. They had other people ready to step in, which they did.
Yeah, they grossly underestimated how prepared and how willing the Iranian people were ready to fight. And the reason why is because Iran has watched the war against Iraq and
Right.
the war against Syria over the last decade or so, or 2 decades.
And they had a war with Iraq.
They also had a war with Iraq where Iraq was supported by the United States when
Yep.
Saddam Hussein was in power.
So they learned all of what to do, what not to do, and what not.
Yeah, and what people also don't understand, this is the big issue with American government and foreign policy, is that they don't really understand that Iran is one of the most learned, scholarly countries in the Middle East, if not in the world.
Right.
So it's important
They-
for the... What's up?
I was gonna try to cut in. They probably have their fair share of support too, right? From, I'm guessing, China and/or Russia.
Well, they have support from China and Russia. It was believed at one point, it was believed actually that they were receiving intelligence from both those countries in order to conduct strikes. One of the things I wanted to mention is that, during the celebration of the life of, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini, recently took place this weekend, I believe, and slightly before then. It was a 3-day celebration, a 3-day period of mourning, actually.
Yeah.
And what we noticed is that it was the largest public gathering in history, human history. That
Oh,
was
wow.
recorded.
Hmm.
So you had several millions of people that attended that funeral.
Do you think that was genuine, like people were really sad to see this guy go? Or do you think it could have been some of like, we're too scared to not pretend to be sad, kind of like what was going on when that North Korean leader fell and all those people were like fake crying? Or do you think it's somewhere in the middle where you've got some people like afraid to be not looking sad and some people who were really sad? Like where does it fall in all that?
Well, I personally believe that when you deal with Shia Islam, which is a very tenacious form of Islam when it comes to being attacked and defending, self in person. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of it evolved out of southern Iraq, and it was like they lost to an opponent. I'll need to get more on the backstory of that, but because they lost to it, they vowed in the future to always protect their faith and their people that followed
Right.
it. So in Iran, they will fight to the last man if they have to.
Okay.
Because it's within their credence.
Now, I've been sort of inundated with Western media. I try to look at the best sources I can, but I always tell people when you're trying to get news from all the way around the world, even a seasoned journalist, it's challenging to know what's what because you're literally getting it from around the world. And anyway, the short of it, my question is, those reports that came out in the months leading up to the conflict about protesters being killed in the street. Did you hear some of these? Allegedly, according to Western media sources, and who knows if they're being honest or not, but there are at least some legitimate factions within Iran that really don't like their leadership. And it's a big country, so I'm sure there's probably both supporters and detractors alike. But are those stories real, or did Western media just create them to stir up fever for the war?
Well, I mean, there are several things to think about. You have to think about what's happened in previous conflicts that mirror these types of conflicts. For example, in Syria, where they had factions of a society supported by, the United States and armed by the United States, create the chaos that led to Damascus. Think about Euromaidan, same issue. United States and other countries supporting factions within a country. I mean, where are they getting the guns from is the first question. How are they getting armed, and how are they getting mobilized with this training to do so? So I believe that there was a legitimate security threat on behalf of the Iranian government, and they were having to get rid of that situation before it became a massive issue, because this is part and parcel. So we do have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that, but we can definitely cover that in a future podcast. So before we end things, there's something that you wanted to wrap up by saying, now that we have fully inaugurated the return of The Last Defense.
Yeah, well, I can't get over the irony that the radio station, which literally is across the street, like maybe 150 yards from where I sit right now. They announced their closure yesterday, and then today we're coming back on air. Now we're talking like 7 years ago, right? That was a long time ago. So for the Cosmos to line up that precisely, I thought was kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Strange. Truth is stranger than fiction, but there's a lovely level of serendipity that happens in our lives. I'm very happy to actually be back in the political sphere, looking at a lot of these stories with you, just like old times, and hopefully we can carry this on, because there's going to be tons of stuff to chat about anyway.
Right.
So I guess on my end, what we'll do, we'll grow the channel as we go along. We may even have guests on, and once the operate. What was up?
I just said, I agree. I even have a guest who's chopping at the bit to do a podcast with us. So I'll keep her informed and let her know when we're ready.
Yeah, brilliant. Lovely, yeah. So I'm just looking forward to the future, see how we can take this. And of course, on my end, I'll have to do some logistics in the background to try to get things as smooth as possible. So,
yep. And I'm training at the local TV station, which is how I came up with that report about the fella John Clark I was talking about with the food economy. That's all stuff where I'm working on with professional TV cameras, editing equipment, software that I've never used before. Hopefully all of this lends to greater results for our efforts.
Yeah, brilliant. So I guess because this is very new, I'll just address the audience about this. Again, we are at The Last Defense, revitalizing and resurfacing this project, so that way we can cover the news taking place around the world and just give our own opinions and thoughts on it. Now, as this channel grows, just be there with us. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Also, feel free to leave comments for us within the comments section. And as we grow, we'll give instructions as to what we're doing or how best you can support the channel as things grow and develop. So thank you once again. It's been a pleasure. And nice to see you again, Mike. And until next time, we'll go ahead and try to get one done next week as well, same time.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Take care, everyone. And we'll chat with you next week.